Now, the next big question is, who are the people or groups of individuals that transmit culture? We have what we call the agents of socialization and enculturation. Now, there are around six major agents of socialization and enculturation. We have the family, schools, peer groups, mass media, religion, state, and major social and historical events. Let's discuss them one by one. Starting off with family. A family is the primary agent of socialization from infancy to childhood and sometimes up to adulthood. They are essential for the early care and development of the child. And it's an important venue for social engagement and political socialization. Remember that we get our political beliefs from our family. Who are we going to vote in the election? Uh, come from our family. Okay. And now the question is, what are the values, attitudes, and behaviors and beliefs that you've learned from your family? Can you give some? You may write it on your notebook. And lastly, apart from defining the individual, family is also defined by the changes in the society. So, as I mentioned a while ago, as time progresses and because of the changes in the society, family also changes. Say, for example, migration, the concept of overseas workers. So, because of those social phenomena, the structure or the dynamics of the family also change. The next agent of socialization and enculturation is the school. Schools have critical role in socialization as various academic and social activities mold students' beliefs, values, and attitudes. So through the learning tasks that your teachers give to you, you get proper values and attitudes like sense of responsibility, discipline, cooperation. Also, you benefit from the constant guidance and evaluation of your teachers. Lastly, schools have become a venue for political socialization. Next is the peer group. Peer groups refer to the people who have the same interests and characteristics such as age and social background. They reinforce acceptable behaviors introduced in the family and school. Depending on the peer group a person belongs, the proper values, behaviors that a person learns from his or her family and school can be strengthened in peer groups such as sense of responsibility, discipline, etc. And peer groups can also be informal and spontaneous and voluntary. Another agent of socialization and enculturation is mass media. It includes forms of communication such as books, magazines, newspaper, radio, TV, etc. Now, as a socializing agent, it is a source of information. As we all know, through mass media, we get updated on what's going on around us. Also, it presents various viewpoints regarding a particular issue. Also, they provide entertainment that influence people's view, behavior, and attitudes. Alarmingly, people nowadays anchor their values, their attitudes, and beliefs from mass media. But it shouldn't be the case. People should be careful of what they feed their minds because what they feed their minds affect their behavior and their attitudes. Another is religion and state. Both religion and state are considered ultimate sources of authority. Religion exerts a great influence on person's view, legitimizes accepted social practice, provides stability to society and sources of social change. Remember, during the 1986 revolution, the church became a very powerful instrument to change the political system in the country. The church rather, helped uh, remove the Marcos dictatorship, while the state reinforces appropriate behaviors through laws and other regulations. And now we're ready to move to the last part of our lesson. But before we proceed to that, let's just quickly recall the major agents of socialization and enculturation that transmit. Sure. So what are those again? We have family, schools, peer groups, mass media, religion, and state. And now we can now proceed to the last part of our lesson, which is conformity, deviance, and social control. Now, in order for a person to become an acceptable and functional member of the society, he or she must conform to the norms of the society. Conformity refers to the process of altering or changing one's thoughts and actions to the accepted behavior within his or her group. According to Kelman, there are three types of conformity. First, we have compliance, outward conformity with social pressure, but privately disagreeing with it. Say, for example, a person just follows the rules and regulations of a particular society because of reward and punishment, because of outward motivation. But if the outward motivation is already gone, compliance will no longer be evident. That's why this is considered to be the least permanent type of conformity. The second one is identification, which refers to inward conformity. A person obeys a particular behavior or follows a particular behavior in order to have a satisfying relationship with the authority figures. Say, for example, the parent and child relationship. The child obeys his or her parents because he or she wants to have a good relationship with his or her parents, and that's inward conformity. The motivation is coming from within. He or she wants to please his or her parents. And lastly, we have the internalization. This is the most permanent and deeply rooted form of conformity because it's a combination of outward and inward conformity. An individual follows the standards of behavior of the society because, number one, he is motivated to be right. So that's an inward conformity. And another is that he is following the rules and regulations of the society because of the rewards and punishments that will be given by the authority figure. And at the same time, the authority figure is very trustworthy, very respectable, very credible to be followed. Okay. Second, we have deviance. Deviance is defined as a behavior that elicits strong negative reactions from group members and involves actions that violate commonly held social norms. If a while ago we've discussed conformity or the ability to behave according to the usual standards and expectations of the society, this time we're going to discuss a behavior that deviates from the norms of the society, which is called deviance. In Tagalog, it's called pagpapasaway. There are different sociological perspectives that explain why are there deviant behaviors. First is biological and psychological view. This view believes that people display deviant behavior because of genetics, but this has already been debunked. And the more acceptable view that explains the cause of deviance is the sociological view, wherein this view believes that the environment is the one that causes deviant behavior. Say, for example, if a person was raised in a slum area and he or she is used to interacting with people that are members of a gang. Therefore, if these people display deviant behavior, that person will also will adopt such kind of behavior. However, if a child grows in a secure and safe environment, most probably that person will behave properly or will not display deviant behavior. Now, in order to address or discourage deviance, a society implements social control. Social control refers to any systematic means and practices used to maintain norms, rules, regulate conflict, and discourage deviant behavior. The most common social control that is used by the society to address conflicts and violation of norms are sanctions. There are two types of sanctions. We have the formal sanctions and the informal sanctions. Formal sanctions are sanctions that are provided by the laws and other regulations of the society. An example of this is death penalty. So uh, in order to prevent people from committing crime, the society implements death penalty and other forms of punishment. And we have informal sanction, which is usually used by smaller societies. And examples of this are ostracism. Ostracism is when a person is isolated from a particular group of society for a certain period of time as a form of punishment. We also have social stigma. These are the negative thoughts that are being spread out in the society about a particular person or of people, which is quite similar with gossip. Now, remember, when a society implements a form of social control, they must take into consideration human dignity and human rights. Human dignity refers to the idea that a person has their innate right to be valued, respected, and treated well, while human rights refer to the legal, ethical, social principles that consider the human person deserving of liberties and protection by virtue of human dignity. Human rights are universal, fundamental, indivisible, and absolute. So, regardless of society you belong, your human rights or your human dignity should be considered when a society implements a particular social control. Remember during the Duterte administration, wherein they implemented Operation Tukhang to solve the drug problem in the Philippines? The intention was good. They wanted to stop the drug problem in the Philippines. However, there were several times that human rights were violated because of this program. Okay, the right of the people to be heard, to undergo due process, and even the right to life were taken away from them because of this program. Uh, Thus, always remember that the society, when implementing a social control, they must always consider uh, human rights and human dignity. And that's it for our third lesson. And before I end this video, I'd like you to write on your notebook your highlight or the most important lesson you've learned from the second part of this topic. Okay, I hope you've learned a lot. Goodbye, everyone.